The extraordinary variety of plants and animals on Earth make our planet unique. In its harmony and balance, the spectacle of nature is born of an age-old evolution that has endured almost as long as the Earth itself. To date, scientists have discovered nearly 2 million species. But this represents only 15% of life on Earth. Huge swaths of this planet's biodiversity are completely unknown, especially in our forests and oceans. Biodiversity produces oxygen, provides food for plants and animals, and helps to purify the soil and water. Our forests and oceans play an essential role in regulating climate, allowing billions of organisms to celebrate life on Earth. But this fragile balance is threatened.
Our lives depend on biological diversity. Species and ecosystems are disappearing at an unsustainable rate. We humans are the cause. We stand to lose a wide variety of environmental goods and services that we take for granted.
Researchers believe that the Earth is undergoing one of the most significant mass extinction events in its history, caused by our civilization. Our expansion is affecting the ecosystems of all other species.
We are changing our world, and species are disappearing.
As humans, we can have a drastic effect on this planet. We can't just do things and not think about the long-term consequences.
It's a serious issue. We need to change minds and change attitudes towards nature.
Human impact on biodiversity has greatly increased since the start of the Industrial Revolution during the 18th century. Massive technological and economic development have driven the expansion of our civilization across the planet. The Earth's population has grown from 700 million to 7 billion in less than 300 years. Worldwide, humanity has become a phenomenal force. Greenhouse gas levels have not been this high for over 1 million years. We have stripped large predators of their territories by confining them to reserves or by destroying the world's large forests. All over the Earth, plants and animals are increasingly struggling to coexist with humanity. Every day, nearly 130 species go extinct, probably one of the highest rates of extinction the Earth has ever seen. For several years, the oceanographic schooner Sedna 4 has been sailing the world's oceans. After expeditions in the Arctic and Antarctic, its crew has now embarked on a 3-year voyage around the world. During their mission, 1,000 days for the planet, they will meet with scientists who have dedicated their lives to protecting biodiversity. Mission leader, Jean Lemire.
We set sail for Central America, a region with one of the highest diversity of species in the world. The preservation of habitats here is vital to the survival of thousands of species of fish, reptiles, and mammals. Here, the many many shapes and bright colors of biodiversity stimulate our desire to protect them even more.
In Costa Rica, the team sets off in search of one of the last big cats of the Americas. These top predators in the food chain help control populations in their ecosystems. Scientists call the jaguar an umbrella species. By protecting it, the balance among all the other species that share its habitat is also protected. Unfortunately, the jaguar is threatened. Humans hunt its prey, and farms, ranches, and ever-expanding urbanization are fragmenting its territory. In less than a century, the jaguar's habitat has been cut in half. Today, it is confined to pockets of land that are becoming smaller and smaller. Maintaining connections among these pockets of land is essential to the genetic health of the species, because jaguars are part of a single extended family that stretches from Mexico to Argentina. In eastern Costa Rica, a reserve has been created to protect one of the jaguar's habitats. This is a private reserve that regularly attracts scientists such as biologist Jose Gonzalez and Jan Schipper. They have dedicated their lives to protecting these big cats.
Nice spot.
Yeah. Oh, look at there, look at there.
Oh, yeah.
Those are jaguar marks.
Wow, even there.
All the way up.
So that's a good spot for jaguar.
This is a perfect spot. Yeah. This is the place we're shooting.
A jaguar has marked its territory by scratching a tree.
Get sunlight direct to it, and then the lock.
Installing a motion sensing camera will record the passage of jaguars and photo ID them. Using photographs over several years, researchers have shown that the reserve is frequented by about 14 jaguars. And videos highlight the problem of jaguars coexisting with local farmers.
Oh, look at that.
What's this?
That's definitely a cow, and that looks like Cora.
Yeah, that's Cora, for sure. That's amazing.
That's amazing. Wow, see the power in his jaws?
Wow.
Wow.
With the strength of the animal.
Yeah. So I suppose that, you know, when a jaguar cut a cow like this, it brings lots of conflict.
Yeah, because that's the basis for conflict, people hunting jaguars in revenge. But on the other side, it is also a consequence of problems because people is hunting the prey base. So that's why they go out and hunt cattle, because they don't have anything else to eat.
Jaguars are more and more threatened because the increased conversion of virgin forest into livestock pasture reduces the prey available to them. The reserve has an area of about 100 square kilometers, which is not enough to support the jaguar population. Today, the reserve is bordered by a nearly continuous succession of pastures and cattle farms. The jaguars find it difficult to move among the isolated pockets of forest.
can see, there's only little patches here and there of forest with agriculture, clear-cut areas for cattle and so forth. Pastures obviously has very little value in terms of a jaguar being able to cross. So we don't necessarily need continuous virgin forest from here to the coast. We just need a mix of forest types along with different types of more sustainable agriculture to connect it. And that's a lot easier to sell that to landowners instead of saying, oh, we need to take your land away and put it in conservation.
The challenge for scientists is to protect the jaguars when they leave the reserve's boundaries. To do so, they must establish migration corridors. In this way, they hope to convince farmers to preserve sections of forest on their land that allow the big cats and their prey to move about their territory. But first, they must capture one.
So we use some pheromones to attract the animals.
By equipping a jaguar with a tracking collar, the scientists will be able to precisely monitor its movements.
And this is the trap. So it has a little mechanism like right in the bottom. We're gonna check it right now just to see if it's working fine. If jaguars disappear, what we're gonna see is just overabundance of many other species, probably changing entirely what we know as biodiversity right now. So it's a huge change that is gonna occur. That probably also works when you don't have sharks in the sea. The entire community changes.
Large predators are threatened all over the world, both on land and in the ocean. In recent decades, populations of sharks, tuna, and swordfish have declined by 90% around the world. During this same period, fishing intensity has increased dramatically. More and more, ecosystems are suffering the consequences of this overexploitation. In the coral reefs of the Caribbean, large predators are increasingly rare, which has weakened ecosystems and opened up a niche for an invasive species. The lionfish. Biologist Tim Pusak of the University of Oregon has studied this phenomenon for many years.
So lionfish that naturally live in the Indo-Pacific have been taken from their home by humans, brought over to the US because people like to have them in their aquariums. They're beautiful, stunning fish. It's great to look at them. The problem is they like to eat, and they like to eat a lot. So they'll tend to eat all the other fish that are in the aquarium, and so people just release it into the ocean.
Lionfish have begun to proliferate in Caribbean waters. Genetic studies show that the population began with only 6 individuals. Scientists are now studying the consequences of their presence in the food chain.
It appears that they can eat prey items that are up to about half their body size, which is rather large. They eat every and anything they can get their mouth on. Studies have found that a single lionfish could reduce the number of small coral reef fish by about 90%, so they're having a drastic effect, much greater than any native fish would have.
The smaller fish eaten by the lionfish generally consume large amounts of algae. With no fish left to eat the algae, they proliferate to the point where they suffocate the reef. The lionfish adapted quickly to its new habitat, and this fierce predator has taken advantage of the weakened ecosystems.
Populations exploded since the 1990s and now extend throughout the Caribbean, into the Gulf of Mexico, up the eastern seaboard of the US, and working their way down the coast of South America.
The remarkable adaptation of this invasive species to its new environment, combined with the overfishing of large fish, has weakened the health of coral reefs in the Caribbean. Panama has not been spared the influx of invasive species, which are weakening some of the world's richest ecosystems. These ecosystems are home to nearly 50% of the world's amphibian species. Frogs occupy one of the most important niches in the food chain. They consume large amounts of harmful insects and serve as food themselves for many species of reptiles, birds, and fish. In the field of medicine, they have also led to the development of antibiotics and are important in cancer research. Over the past 250 million years, they have withstood many catastrophes affecting life on Earth. But today, frogs are in trouble. A mysterious disease is attacking them where their numbers are highest. To make matters worse, these frogs are also weakened by insecticides and habitat loss. In just a few years, over 100 species have gone extinct. A few years ago, biologist Edgardo Griffith used to come to this river to study frogs.
I used to find 56 species of frogs around this stream alone. And now can't hear anything, really, you know.
The cause of this sharp decline? An invasive species. A mysterious fungus called chytrid has invaded the rivers of Panama's mountains.
The fungus arrived in 2005, killed 90% of the amphibian community, in some cases 100% of the individuals of certain species. Came, kill, stay, and at the same time it's moving eastward, but it's also coming up from South America.
Found in Mexico as early as 1972, the disease spread to Central America. Other infection sites have been found all over the world. Today, over a third of the world's 6,000 known amphibian species are threatened with extinction.
To me, I used to be a field biologist. Now I think I'm like an extinction biologist.
For scientists, time is running out. Edgardo and his colleagues are trying to capture living frogs in the hopes of learning more about the disease. They organize regular searches in Panama's rivers. Chytrid is spreading at a rate of over 30 kilometers per year. Scientists are trying to understand how it spreads from region to region. When a species nears extinction in nature, scientists often have no other choice but to remove the few survivors from the wild.
This one might be one of the species that we need to focus more into it and see why they survive, you know.
The last remaining individuals of many frog species are today conserved in sterilized containers, isolated from the outside world, where the dangerous fungus threatens their survival. Like Noah's Arks, these containers are only a fragile and temporary means to preserve the genetic heritage of dozens of amphibian species. But this is the best that scientists can do.
Some of them are not dealing with putrid yet in their populations, but we know it's going to get there sooner or later. So we're trying to rescue as many as we can, try to breed them, try to keep them healthy. This might be the last one, so it's a huge responsibility for us.
In the name of all the frogs dying on the jungle floor, the search continues. Long considered among the most ideal frog habitats, Panama's forests are now a real threat to their survival. Today, this unprecedented epidemic is threatening the ecological balance of ecosystems around the world. In the Cayman Islands, it's increasing human population that is harming habitats. Over half of the original environment has been destroyed.
The population of the Cayman Islands is doubling every 12 years. What that means is the footprint on the land here that's taken over by humans is doubling every 12 years.
This habitat reduction is disastrous for certain endemic species, such as the blue iguana. Found only on Grand Cayman, it is considered one of the most threatened species in the world. As the island's largest herbivore, the blue iguana eats large amounts of fruits and flowers, which helps to disperse plant seeds over large areas. This is vital for maintaining the island's delicate plant diversity.
In 2002, we did a very detailed survey, and it was the most depressing survey I've ever been involved in, because all of the places we used to see iguanas, there were none. We think realistically it was probably more like 12 left in the wild, and they weren't finding each other to breed. So the population was doomed. It was functionally extinct, as we put it, technically speaking. They were there, but there was no future.
In 2002, Frederick Burton left his job to dedicate himself to the recovery of this species. Through trial and error, he learned how to hatch baby iguanas in incubators, far from their natural predators.
When they hatch, they're tiny, they're about this long, but they grow very, very fast. And by the time they're 2 years old, they're naturally predator-proof, effectively. They get too big for the native snakes.
Oh, this is the captive facility. We have a few hundred iguanas in here.
The young iguanas are given refuge at the Grand Cayman's Royal Botanical Park. Breeding adults, responsible for the proliferation of the species, are also kept here.
They have a need for a lot of space. I mean, we found this out. Originally, when we built this facility, we thought this was all we needed. And then we discovered they needed more space. We studied them in the wild, and then we found out, whoa, an animal like this would probably have a territory of maybe an acre or something like that.
We have the
2-year-olds that we're going to put out. So Jean, these are the cages where we have the 2-year-old iguanas, the ones that we're getting ready to release into the wild.
It is now time for these young iguanas to take their true place in nature. But will this new captive-born generation succeed in recolonizing Grand Cayman's weakened environment?
Next one.
Nice.
So you will sleep there for tonight, right?
Yeah, they'll be hanging in the backpacks, the same backpacks we're going to take in the morning. So they'll cool down and they'll be fine, ready to go.
After years of effort, Frederick Burton convinced the government to establish 2 protected areas on the island, where he can now release his young iguanas.
So Jean, we are on the boundary now of the Collier's Wilderness Reserve. This is the protected area on our left now. It's not huge, but the island isn't big, yeah?
By protecting the reserve from the assault of development, Frederick Burton has protected more than just the iguanas, because dozens of other threatened species also live here.
We will get rid of our packs here and we'll just take the iguana in. Here we go. Here's the box. Oh yes.
Whoa.
So now he will spend all night inside this box. All night he will sleep in here, and in the morning at first light he will come out into this strange world. And the population has gone from about 12 now to about 650, 700, somewhere around there.
A human initiative saved the blue iguana from extinction. Years of effort and protection have resulted in a protected area adapted to these animals' needs. Frederick Burton now hopes that these winning conditions will allow the most threatened reptile on the planet to begin breeding in the wild again.
The perseverance of Frederick Burton is inspiring. It proves that sometimes the efforts of a few dedicated people can make up for the abuses of society.
Sometimes evolution itself can put a species at risk.
All right.
Over time, a species can become isolated on an island, like Escudo de Veraguas, off the coast of Panama. Biologist Bryson Voirin has dedicated his life to studying what some scientists believe is the rarest mammal on Earth, the pygmy three-toed sloth. These sloths live in one of the world's most productive and most useful ecosystems in terms of biodiversity, the mangrove forest.
No, that looks like mangrove, but it's not. It's really shallow.
In the tropics, mangroves protect shorelines from erosion, and they provide food and shelter for many threatened species.
Oh, hey, look, it's eating. There's a sloth right there. It's a female. Yeah, she's eating a leaf. She's got it right in her mouth.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
Oh, she's got a baby. Let's see if we're real quiet. Maybe we won't. It's one of the rarest mammals on Earth, and there's 2 of them right there.
The pygmy three-toed sloth is found only on the island of Escudo de Veraguas. Discovered in 2001, it was immediately classified as critically endangered. Recent studies have indicated that this sloth lives exclusively in the mangrove, making it even more vulnerable, because worldwide, mangroves are being affected by climate change and human development. At current rates, they could disappear entirely by the end of the 21st century. Bryson Voyerin is concerned about the survival of pygmy sloths because studies show that there are only 63 of them. During his last expedition, he attached radio collars to 10 sloths. Bryson expects to find them in the mangrove because the animals move very little and use the natural camouflage of the mangrove to avoid predators.
Oh, wow. There he is, right there.
Right there, in the mangroves again.
Yeah, he's still in the mangrove, so he hasn't really gone anywhere in the past month or so.
In the days that follow, he finds 9 of the 10 pygmy sloths, all in the mangrove. But the team is worried because one is missing.
Sebastian.
Jean.
Hi, Jean Sebastian.
Hi, Sebastian. Yeah, we're just at the end of the mangroves. We lost our signal a little bit. We're gonna need some help.
Okay.
In 2005, several families of fishermen took up residence on the island. Their knowledge of the area could help find the missing sloth.
It doesn't really bother me.
Hay mucho. Hay mucho.
You think that the one that live in the mangrove, they live in the mangrove, but there is a lot more right behind in the jungle here.
So let's check in the forest, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Muchas gracias.
This surprising information contradicts previous studies indicating that the mangrove is the pygmy sloth's sole habitat. Bryson decides to search in one of the channels leading into the forest.
Number 5 is the one that I just don't know where he went. But he might have actually gone out of the mangroves and into the forest, which would be pretty exciting because that means that he's actually eating other things besides mangrove leaves, and he's in the interior of the island maybe. Hopefully we can find him. All right, I got him on the 900 frequency. Hear that chirping? That's the sloth. So he must be straight back that way.
Every step away from the mangrove would appear to increase the credibility of the locals. But it is also possible that Bryson will only find the collar of a poached sloth. But if the sloth is found in the forest, it would be great news for the species. In nearby Costa Rica, Jan and Jose have yet to catch a jaguar. The scientists are concerned because the animal's distribution in the reserve is well known, and the lack of any tracks is surprising. They redouble their efforts in other sectors of the reserve. Capturing such a cunning animal is a huge challenge, but it's an essential part of the research, because only through a better understanding of the jaguar's migration patterns can its living space be increased. On Grand Cayman, Frederick Burton and his blue iguanas have benefited from their protected habitat for nearly 2 years.
Joel, there's a hatchling.
Yeah, that's great.
That's the first wild-born young iguana we have ever seen in this area. This is a wild iguana that has hatched here in the protected area.
So it is working.
It's working. It's
great.
Working. I think it's very interesting working on a small island because it is like a microcosm of what is going on everywhere in the world. And it's very important, I think, for people working in conservation to spend at least part of their time working on things that can succeed. It's important for personal motivation, but it's also important for the way that conservation is presented to the world. People get very tired of hearing bad news stories all the time.
The wild birth of a baby iguana is a triumph of nature. On Escudo de Veraguas, the radio signal leads Bryson Boyrin on his quest.
Yeah, you could just see her fur. Hey, buddy. Okay. Look at that. Wow. Whew. Victoria. Hey. Whoa, you're looking big. Oh, man.
That's great.
Oh, she looks great. Look at her.
Yeah. That's great.
She looks like she's been doing very good here in the forest and not on the mangroves, so she looks very healthy.
You know, one thing I think that this shows is that even though the mangroves are being cut, that may not be as big of a risk for the pygmy sloths, because if they're able to eat other things in the forest, at least they have other food sources besides just the mangroves. So I'm pretty confident to say that there are more sloths than just 63 on Escudo. There are probably a lot more. If they're in the whole island here like this, that means the population is pretty good.
Ready to go?
All right,
Yeah,
Victoria.
back to home, sweet home.
So the locals were right. If the pygmy sloths are spread over the entire island and live in its abundant forest, scientists will have to re-examine their numbers and maybe even the status of the species. It's fantastic news for the pygmy three-toed sloth. This important discovery was the result of collaboration between scientists and the island's inhabitants. But the happiness of this day is short-lived. Not far away, a nasty surprise awaits the scientists. A green turtle, another endangered species, is trapped in the dugout of a group of poachers.
So here in the islands, you know, so they're probably gonna cut it up, smoke it, and then they will cook it slowly when they're finished with it. And this animal can stay at least a week before he starts to get weak.
Do they really know what they're doing?
I really think they really know what they do. The police would come around here maybe 1 or 2 times in a month, just pass around looking for drugs people, but they really don't looking to see if people killing sea turtle.
That's pretty sad to see.
It's pretty sad, you know, for me, it's because, you know, I worked 13 years protecting sea turtle with the Peter Maitland Animal project in Costa. And my father got more than 20 years saving them, you know, trying to save them, and I do the same, you know, so it's pretty sad to see they catch it and they're going to kill it, you know.
Poaching is yet another threat in the fight to conserve endangered species. And the problem is widespread, even in protected areas.
So? Bad news? Nothing.
Nothing. We checked all the traps again, where we put the extra pheromones out last night, and nothing.
No tracks, nothing.
No tracks. We actually went along a couple extra trails and checked that where there were some muddy spots from the rain that we had the other day. We haven't seen a track since you've been here.
Well, that's life, I suppose.
Yep, we're obviously very concerned about what might be causing this. Even if we have all this conservation momentum behind us, it can just take a few people to come in and maybe snare some animals, which is what we're hearing. It's depressing.
But where are Cora and the other jaguars? There are rumors that poachers have recently been operating inside the reserve, and two of them were even bold enough to brag of their horrible acts on social networks.
Oh my God, that's sad.
It's a catastrophe for the local population, which numbers only 14 jaguars.
How far should we go to protect threatened species? A private militia patrols the reserve every day. Around here, they don't mess around when it comes to conservation. There are rampant rumors that up to 11 jaguars have been killed in the region, possibly even within the boundaries of the reserve. Jaguar skins have been found on the black market.
It makes me sad because it's as if they were threatening members of my own family. So I don't know what we're going to do with these poachers. So much work, love, and sacrifice over so many years, only to see our jaguars killed. We're going to return to the mountain and try to find these hunters who shoot at anything that moves.
On Little Cayman, another type of hunting party is being organized. Local diving associations are mobilizing to wipe out the lionfish, the species now considered the worst poacher in the Caribbean. But the divers must keep up the hunting pressure if they are going to neutralize this invasion, because lionfish reproduce extremely quickly. This is not sustainable. So they have turned to a more natural solution. They are enlisting the help of the few groupers that live near the coastline. Little by little, they are training them to hunt the invader. Who knows whether these few fish will develop a taste for the lionfish and transmit this new feeding habit to other fish. Earth's ecosystems are today weakened and threatened by a variety of external pressures. Conservation efforts are vital, but the hard work of many can be completely undone by the greed of just a few.
Buying the turtle's freedom cost only a few dollars. A modest sum given the situation. We even wondered if we were not trying to appease our own conscience in the face of so much indifference. But this was a living symbol of nature's difficult coexistence with humanity. We just couldn't leave it there and do nothing.
I'm optimistic because I believe we can change things, and if a human being realizes the importance, there's still something we can do, but we are right on the edge.
The coral reef system could be in dire straits, but we need to take efforts in order to mitigate these, and we can stop fishing larger fish and keep them on the reef, and it's important that we do it now.
I'm not really sure which species will survive and which will survive in the future, but I think life will find a way.
The lionfish invasion really highlights for me is the importance for humans to understand that they can have a drastic effect, and they need to realize what they're doing before they do it.
When you're in a forest with predators, it gives you a new respect for life. It gives you a new respect for the connectivity of all things. You actually feel like you're not on the top of the world. Maybe that's where we should begin, is to not just educate people in the classroom, but take people out of the classroom into what's left of the wilderness so that we can actually save it.
As you inspire people and educate them, I think then they'll start to care more about it and help protect it.
The troubled coexistence between humans and the different forms of life on our planet too often translates into the loss of species that play key roles in ecosystems. Perhaps we can draw inspiration from the remarkable work of scientists who dedicate their lives to preserving endangered species. Humanity has a duty to reestablish a harmonious relationship with nature, and do it soon. It is within our grasp to sustainably and harmoniously develop the Earth's resources. But time is running out if our legacy to future generations is to inspire a wave of change and a new attitude, one of respect for biodiversity and the essential harmony among all forms of life.
This is Dr. Neil Burney. He lives in Bermuda, a stunning Atlantic island 640 miles east of North Carolina, USA.
So now
He spent the last 30 years practicing veterinary medicine, but now he's transferring his veterinary skills to help save, protect, and learn more about the incredible marine life of Bermuda's ocean.
This is a completely wild shark.
Alongside his dedicated ocean vet team are a number of scientists, marine biologists, and specialist master divers, helping to perform a number of unique and dangerous procedures in a bid to safeguard critically important marine species. Together, the team will be fitting satellite tags to huge tiger sharks, saving precious green turtles, dissecting giant blue marlin, and obtaining unique toxin samples from 45-ton migrating humpback whales.
Yay! Whoa! My knees are like jello. Yes, man.
This is Bermuda, home to Dr. Neil Burney, the ocean vet. In 2014, Neil Burney and his Ocean Vet team embarked on one of the most ambitious marine science projects of their lives. Over 131 days of filming, the team tagged, rescued, studied, sampled, swam with, and released some of the most breathtaking marine life in Bermuda's beautiful ocean.
There's nothing better than to be out in the open working with live animals. It's just the best job in the world, right, Pluggy? You got it, mate. He said, you got it, mate. We got it.
In this special episode of Ocean Vet, we go behind the scenes of this unique, groundbreaking series.
It's been an unbelievable first day's filming for this first series of Ocean Vet. I don't know if you can see that, hear that behind me. This is Bermuda, people. It's incredible.
The cast and crew reveal their favorite moments, close calls, and toughest challenges. And we discovered just what it took for Neil Burney to become Bermuda's Ocean Vet.
Straight into the outstacks, so in this position, it's perfect. Lift and go. Drop the towel on his head. Towel on his head immediately. As we're traveling through the deep oceans, we've come across a pod of bottlenose dolphin, and they're actually riding the bow with us. So in the last few minutes, we've had 3 tiger sharks turn up in our chum sling. So we're gonna get in the water and swim with them. We want you to love these sharks so you don't kill these sharks. This fish is gonna swim, man. His dorsal's up, he's gonna swim, I tell you. You never know what you're gonna find here in the Bermuda Triangle. Cool.
Who knows? When we get past this rock, we'll do it.
Right, quickly.
So, Ocean Vet, date, who knows?
The small UK production team, consisting of Andrew Smith and Dan Radford, arrived in Bermuda on the 3rd of March, 2014. Working alongside Neil Burney, the Ocean Vet, Choi Ming, the series marine biologist, Dylan Ward, the second boat captain, Oscar Doyce, dive support, and Andrew Kirkpatrick on underwater camera, they set out on the monumental task of filming and completing 11 scientific marine projects.
What's going on? He's about to take a biopsy.
The first part of the shoot was to obtain blubber samples from migrating humpback whales. The goal? To test for dangerous man-made toxins.
I think the most challenging part of the whale episode has been you never know on any one given day whether you're going to have whales that want to play or not. And when I say want to play, having whales that breathe at the surface 2 or 3 times and then go back down for 20 minutes is normal behavior for them. But it's no good for making a TV show, and it's certainly no good for trying to get biopsies from whales.
I don't want to spook it. It's right here. Oh my gosh.
Repeatedly, the team took the tiny inflatable boat within touching distance of 50-ton whales. It's a very dangerous place to be, especially if you're carrying state-of-the-art camera equipment and harness to the boat.
Filming a television series like Ocean Vet is just full of dangerous things. The first was filming the whale episode, which is the first episode that we shot. I'm strapped in the back of the rib, and I've got a harness here which secures me to the front, and a harness at my back which secures me to the back. And we were surrounded by humpback whales, and these things are massive. They were particularly engaged in what they were doing, running after this female. And we positioned the rib right in the middle of what was going on. And there was whales jumping over here, full breaches, clean out the water, and there was other whales jumping, clean out the water. And the whole scene was escalating. When a whale starts to come to the surface, they often blow all of their air out just before they reach the surface and they breach. The watercolor just went from dark blue to like a beautiful, beautiful light blue, and I mean, there was swearing and everything. I was sure that there was a 45-ton mammal that was about to eject itself out of the ocean 5 foot from the side of the boat and land straight on us. And I'm not being funny. If that had happened, it would have undoubtedly have killed us all.
Biopsy taken. Saw the hole in him as the arrow left. And I'm just winding in. We are in amongst a pod of humpbacks who seem unconcerned by our presence.
The production team also needed to collect underwater footage of the whales, particularly of any human interactions. Locating humpbacks to swim with was a challenge, but when the team did, it was to be an unforgettable and incredibly emotional experience. Capturing the footage was underwater cameraman Andrew Kirkpatrick.
There was a moment when we were down there, and you'll probably see in some of the footage, where Neil, it's almost like the meeting of two species. One of the humpback comes up to meet Neil, and it's almost like the sort of exchange and acknowledgement that, yes, I'm the above water person and you're the below sea person. And it's just sort of like, it was almost like, hey, how you doing? And then, you know, the whale actually sings and then peels off. And it just, those little experiences that you just don't get in other animals, it really hit home, actually. It was just sort of like, wow, I had no idea that these creatures were like that.
For the entire team, this single encounter was to become the most memorable of all their wild interactions. Kirkpatrick effortlessly framed the shot and perfectly captured the meeting of two worlds.
Well, we've just had two migrating humpbacks come past. They look like player whales. It's what we've been looking for the last few days. So we've got our main camera team in by the rib over there, tracking them underwater. I've just jumped in with a little DSLR. Amazing creatures, so graceful under the water and absolutely enormous. It's a really, really magical experience. Whew.
What's the most moving experience that I've had in filming this? Well, it has to be going eye to eye with humpback whales. When you're 65 feet down, you're absolutely in their environment. And to have them roll up on you, roll over and look you in the eye, and then swim past you, roll over and look you with their other eye. It's dancing with whales. It's fascinating.
It was these initial encounters that forged the trust and respect that would ultimately carry the team through the rigorous and demanding filming schedule. Sharks are featured heavily in the series, some of which are considered the most dangerous shark species on the planet. However, for the Ocean Vet crew and the production team, it was other working environments that posed greater risks.
I would say the most dangerous experience is probably diving and running short on air on our single tank dives to 120 feet and then coming up.
Neil's dive skills were truly tested during the grouper episode when the team were testing and working with a new tagging trap 120 feet under the ocean. After working to position the heavy trap, Neil found his air supply was much lower than he previously thought.
Anybody that goes to 100 feet, doesn't matter how much experience you have, you got to pay attention. You got to be on your game. It's not something you can take for granted because there are serious inherent dangers involved. Particularly as we're very far offshore as well, so professional medical help is just that much further.
As Neil was checking the tether line, he made a quick descent to the trap. During this descent, his spare regulator malfunctioned and released the remaining air in his tank. Neil quickly found himself in serious trouble.
When they were coming up, they realized they were completely out of air, so we had to drop a second tank down to about 30 feet, where they sat for a bit and did their decompression stop, and they had to breathe with another tank on a rope, which was not that safe. On top of that, Neil used what's called the comms mask. Now the comms mask encompasses your eyes and your mouth, so when you take your mask off, it is your air as well. So he had no mask, and he had to put the second regulator in his mouth without any mask because he couldn't have used the comms mask, and that was a little dangerous, but it's what they had to do to get the shot done, and these guys risked their lives many times to get that shot or get that bit of science recorded, and we got it done. And with other crews, they might not push the limits like that, but because we did, we were able to get the information that we wanted.
The Ocean Vet team and the production crew spent days studying and filming Bermuda's massive tiger sharks. This put Neil and his entire team, including the production crew, in the water with these massive predators. Although strict safety procedures were followed, a shark attack was always in the back of everyone's mind.
When you're doing this the stickman thing, when you're protecting your cameraman from the potential that a shark comes up and bumps him or bites him or something like that, you have to be extremely diligent. One of the things that I find a trip is if you're on land, all of us, we experience our environment pretty much in 2D. You never really think about depth You never really think about something coming at you from above. Well, when you're in the ocean and you're actually in that blue water, you got to be thinking 360 all the time. Like, you got to be thinking above, below, your awareness, like your spatial awareness. You're always spinning around. You're always looking behind you, looking below you, for Andrew's sake and for your sake.
Back in 2009, when the team began swimming with tiger sharks, their experience was limited. During one of Andrew Kirkpatrick's early dives, he witnessed a tiger shark coming very close to taking a bite from Will Tucker's leg, one of the safety team at the time.
So obviously what we do is not a regular job, and no matter how much you prepare, there's always going to be an element of danger. And the real danger for us is obviously being bitten by a shark. And if that ever does happen, there's really not much that you can do. People have been like, hey, what sort of medical stuff do you have on board? And do you have these, foam injectors and all that sort of stuff? And the bottom line is we're so far out there, if you were to be bitten on the arm or the leg, you're probably not gonna make it.
The team's distance from emergency medical attention was so great that even the smallest of accidents had the potential to become life-threatening injuries. But it was Neil's experience and knowledge of these sharks that helped keep the team safe.
Other people would say, Neil, you had a tiger shark circling you repeatedly and coming up at you during that repeated circling. Surely that's an attack by a 12-foot tiger shark. That would be the most dangerous thing. And to that I would say, I've got so used now to dealing with these big predators that at the moment, that doesn't frighten me at all. I'm adrenaline fueled, yes. I'm on edge, yes. But am I actually frightened? No.
After nearly 8 weeks working way out in the open ocean, there was a slight reprieve when filming started on the Eagle Ray episode.
So we're deploying the net. We've come right in against the shoreline. We're deploying the net. We're going to try and capture this ray.
For the first time during the long shoot, the team found themselves working in the relative luxury of Bermuda's protected and simply stunning Harrington Sound. It was also the team's first opportunity to work with the legendary collector, Chris Fluke.
I mean, eagle rays are probably one of the more challenging sort of animals that I had to catch with Ocean Vet because they're very smart. We completely underestimate them. They've got the biggest brain to body ratio of any fish, or pretty much any animal on the planet, I believe. Anytime you've caught one before, just the way it acts, I can tell whether or not we've caught it before, just because it will do the opposite of what a normal ray you would expect it to do in that situation. They can go underneath the net very fast. They can go over the top of the net. They're faster than the boat. So, quite a challenging animal to deal with.
Aerial videography was crucial in reducing some of these challenges and allowed the team to film and scan the locations to find the rays for tagging.
So there's a couple of things that will help you spot eagle rays when it's flat light like this. The first is a good set of Polaroid glasses, but the second, and my favorite, is this. This is a gyro stabilized camera mounted on a quadcopter. Let's go. Modern technology, you've gotta love it.
This technology allowed the team to capture some remarkable footage of eagle ray behavior. Flying the drone was daredevil pilot Johnny Singleton.
One of my favorite moments was when we were out filming the eagle rays, and we sent up the drone, and we couldn't believe our eyes. We saw 3 eagle rays swimming close to the shoreline. Then it all happened. One of the eagle rays had chased the other one and bit onto the ear of the other one, attached, and they went into a spiral down into the depths. And I think that's the first time ever caught on camera from the air, eagle rays mating in the wild.
The Ocean Vet team and the production crew had now witnessed, filmed, studied, and protected some of the world's most remarkable marine species. These shared experiences and the drive to complete such a colossal project had built a deep bond within the team, a bond that was about to be truly tested.
The
The Bermuda Police Service can now confirm the death of 60-year-old Dr. Neil Burney, who died as a result of a marine incident that took place today a few minutes after 11 in the waters off of Horseshoe Bay. It appears that Dr. Neil Burney was free diving in the area.
In one fell swoop, the team's world was turned upside down.
I live about 3 minutes from where the boat was spotted, so I literally jumped in the car I was in my underwear, threw some clothes on, ran down, well, jumped in my car, drove down to the boat where the boat was spotted, and I saw Neil's boat. And still at that moment, I thought, it's not Neil. I thought what had happened is he'd probably helped somebody else who was in trouble, as we've done several times in the past.
Dan called me and said that he'd heard something horrible had happened, but he couldn't confirm anything. And then about 30 seconds later, my phone rang, and it was Choi. And as soon as I saw his name on the phone, I knew something horrible had happened. And I rushed back to the office and saw Dan. And by that time, John Manderson had confirmed it with us. Just a complete state of numbness and shock. It was just awful.
Neil died on November the 11th, just after 11 a.m., 1 week after filming completed. He was helping a friend dive up some damaged lobster pots in the deep ocean, and he got into trouble on his last dive and suffered a blackout and drowned.
I think when I found out about the accident with Neil, it was just shock more than anything else. Obviously, we'd spent the last 3 months doing some incredible things with some amazing species in the ocean, and some of them quite dangerous, So I found it hard to compute that Neil had gone in the way that he'd gone, that it had been as a result of this, quite innocent accident.
Yeah, if I could tell Neil anything now, I'd just tell him thanks for all the incredible experiences, man. Thanks for including me in all these things. Thanks for answering your phone call like the 15th time, but still like answering your phone and taking me out there, dude. Just thank you so much. All right.
I guess if I had another couple minutes with him, I just want to sit there with him and talk, and just know that, just let him know what a big part of my life he was, and just to say thank you.
If I had another opportunity to say something to Neil, obviously I'd say I love you. I'd say thank you for the opportunity. But I think more than anything, I'd say we did it, mate. We did it, and we wrapped it. That's it.
1 week after Neil passed away, his body was transported out to sea, where he would eventually be laid to rest. Over 200 boats followed Neil and the Ocean Vet team out into the deep. Aircraft flew high overhead and dropped flowers. Even the island's pets came to say goodbye. It was an incredible send-off for a remarkable man. A man loved by an entire country for a million different reasons.
So Neil Burney was a man who was contagious. He was contagious about life. His energy and his spirit just swept everybody up in what he was doing.
Neil was such a laugh. I mean, such a laugh to be around. He was your best mate. He was everyone's best mate.
I think Neil was probably the most incredible human I've ever met.
He just had this zeal and passion for just throwing all your cares to the wind and just going at it,
Sometimes it's sad, sometimes, I would say more times, I'm happy because I got to know such an unbelievable guy
and share so much time with him, and I feel super lucky for that.
He had more energy than the rest of us combined, and he exceeded us by 20 to 30 years, the rest of the crew.
Neil was never to be sort of caged. He needed a little bit of direction, but it was the magical moments in Ocean Vet are the bits where he just is himself.
There's a phrase that says, life is not about going to the grave with a well-preserved body. It's about skidding in sideways, burnt out, beat up, going, woohoo, what a ride! That's it.
My knees are like jello.
Yes, man.
So we're bringing the race straight up and into the anesthetic. So you can see the tag nicely, right at the dorsal fin, right at the top. So when he comes to the surface, that antenna is going to come out. 573 pounds of blue marlin. What a magnificent fish this is. I'm going to make a small incision in the skin once I've prepped it, and then I'm going to place this archival PSAT satellite tracking tag in this fish. Just going to put a little local anesthetic in just to numb the sensors that he has in his body wall right here. Love it. Best job in the world.
Neil Burney was like a man who never grew up. And I mean that in the best sense. He had a childlike curiosity. He had a young man's energy and education. But I think generally with all of the Ocean Vet episodes, you just get caught up with Neil's spirit. And to you and the kudos and to the other people involved in the production, it's a great reflection of who Neil Burney was.
I hope that people will watch Ocean Vet and come away with some of the joy that I have for experiencing what is hidden beneath the surface of the ocean. Too many people go down to a beach and look out and they see the surface and they have no concept of the variety that exists beneath. And hopefully our show will do something to bring that to them and give them some of the joy that I've had in showing it.
In Northumberland, on the border with Scotland, lies England's largest forest, Kielder. A wild and remote landscape, home to dense woodland, ancient bogs, and breathtaking waterfalls. And yet, 100 years ago, it didn't even exist. Created to provide the country with timber, it has evolved to become a refuge for some of Britain's greatest and most secretive wildlife. Alongside the people who live and work here, much-loved plants and animals battle to survive and flourish. Filmed over one dramatic year, capturing the beauty of 4 spectacular seasons. This is the story of life inside the forest. In England's largest forest, there's about to be a surge of activity. The days are lengthening, the sun is getting stronger. It's a time for new life and transformations. This is a season of opportunity. This is spring. With hundreds of millions of trees spread over 140,000 acres, it's hard to believe this forest hasn't been here for centuries. Parts of it feel like an ancient land.
When you come to Kielder, I always personally describe it as close as getting to Canada in the UK, because it has that feel about it. It has the huge terrain, but it is fascinating all that came from planting trees from timber production.
The people who work here are part of an idea first conceived 100 years ago.
The vision was to plant a timber crop that the UK could use, because there was a real concern we were running out of trees. We had depleted our timber stock and the UK was in trouble.
In the aftermath of World War I, Britain faced a desperate timber shortage. Woodland covered just 5% of the country, and it was reliant on imports. The Forestry Commission was established, and the moorland around Kielder Castle was identified as suitable for forestry.
It was a real challenge to establish Kielder Forest. The ground conditions were very peaty, as they are today. It was very much open hillside. It was very much an area that the sheep had eaten anything they could eat. Sitka spruce was brought into the UK as a conifer tree which would fast grow and give production. The first trees were planted in 1926.
Much of the planting was done by shipyard workers and miners who were housed in specially constructed camps. It wasn't until 1948 that the first mature trees were felled. Kielder now produces 500,000 tons of timber a year, used for building, furniture and paper. But it's become so much more.
The landscape's hugely diverse compared to what it would be like if it was not planted in 1926. The species list and the naturalness is completely off scale to what this area would have been like without that intervention.
As well as providing timber, Kielder has become a sanctuary for some of Britain's most cherished flora and fauna. It's during spring that much of it comes alive. In 3 months' time, there will be a range of wild flowers and orchids in bloom. For now, the buds are just emerging. To try and reveal further some of the hidden life of the forest, secret cameras have been placed across Kielder. There's an array of activity they can capture when no one is around. In the trees, there's the sound of one of Kielder's best-loved characters, the red squirrel. It's an animal truly at home in the forest. As one of Earth's most agile creatures, they can make huge leaps, the equivalent of a human jumping over a double-decker bus from a standing start. With an incredible sense of spatial awareness, double-jointed ankles that can turn 180 degrees, and small, sharp, curved claws, red squirrels can move up and down trees fast. One of Britain's most iconic native creatures, the red squirrel was once widespread across the country. But since the Victorians introduced the grey squirrel from North America, numbers have plummeted. In many areas, the reds have been wiped out by a virus carried by the greys. It's thought Kielder could now be home to around 50% of England's remaining red squirrel population. Here, the habitat is ideal for them, with abundant food and plenty of potential nest sites. It's hoped Kielder can remain a stronghold for this elusive creature. The red squirrel certainly needs all the help it can get. Unlike the red squirrel, not all of the forest's iconic species live here all year round. Every March, Kielder waits anxiously for the return of one of its most precious birds, the osprey. These formidable raptors fly thousands of miles from their wintering grounds in West Africa. It's a dangerous journey, and their return is by no means certain. Extinct in Britain just 100 years ago, seeing the ospreys establish themselves at one of the 7 nesting platforms in the forest is a welcome relief. Every year, Joanna Daly monitors their progress.
Although Kielder Forest has got millions, literally, of trees, most of them aren't suitable for ospreys because ospreys like somewhere with a great view. It needs to stand above other trees. So it's much safer for the ospreys if they are given a platform in a good location that's very sturdy. There's less risk of the nest blowing out with young chicks that might die.
These nesting platforms were part of an attempt to return ospreys to Northumberland after an absence of 200 years. The efforts finally paid off in 2009, and they've been breeding here ever since. This year, one nest with a male known as Blue UV is capturing Joanna's attention.
The male osprey on this site, he hatched in 2014 at our nest 1, the original nest in Kielder Forest. And he had a satellite tracker fitted, and we know that he winters in northern Senegal. And he came back as a 2-year-old. 2 would be really young for a male to breed, so we didn't expect him to. He came back the next year. Once I did see a bird, a Scottish ringed female, and she's from a nest in the Trossachs, and she's 3 years old. Last year would have been a bonding year with UV. They definitely didn't have any eggs. This year we would hope that they will in fact lay eggs. The first Kielder offspring, and there's over 60 of them, that is actually breeding, going to try to breed at least, in the forest. So it's a milestone for us in a mega way.
Whether Blue UV and his mate are successful is still to be seen. Many dangers lie ahead. It's still early spring in Kielder Forest, and the sun shines across its 60,000 hectares. But beneath the canopy, in the darker, more mysterious depths of the forest, there are unexpected treats. In a quiet, enchanting dell, the silence is broken by the sound of falling water. This is Hindhope Lynn, a waterfall that seems to appear magically out of the forest. In this shadier, damp habitat, it's mosses, ferns, and liverworts that thrive. In a place like this, it's easy to understand why forests have become synonymous with folklore and fairy tales. To reveal some of the hidden mysteries of the forest, secret cameras have been placed across Kielder. And they've made a rare sighting of an animal once extinct in England. This is a pine marten, elusive and secretive. They're a cat-sized member of the weasel family. The first sighting of a pine marten in the forest's history was only made in 2018. This footage is more evidence they are taking up permanent residence here. It's even hoped pine martens can help the local red squirrel population. Studies show that with grey squirrels being easier prey for pine martens, their presence can stop the spread of the red's arch-enemy. Just as quietly as they appear on our cameras, they slip away. Elsewhere, March is the time for a different creature to emerge from quieter, secluded parts of the forest. The common toad has spent the winter hibernating, hidden away. Now there's a mass migration back to the pond for mating season. The males gather. At times, they can appear like bathers enjoying a leisurely dip. They're all in search of one thing. And when a female arrives, there's a change in atmosphere. The female might be twice the size of the males, but she's soon ambushed. For the males, it's a no-rules fight for the best position. Only those in the right spot when she lays her thousands of eggs get to fertilize them. For the toad in pole position, they cling on for dear life. You never know when a rival might try to steal your place. These toady scrums can sometimes go on for days. Eventually, the long chains of toad spawn are laid. From these thousands of eggs, only a fraction will survive. Those that do will one day also return to this same pond to take part in their own springtime mating. By April, at the osprey nests, precious eggs have also been laid. They must be kept warm and protected from the elements. For Blue UV and his mate, there's also the problem of intruders. At this time, curious intruder ospreys will often linger around other nests. It's alarming for the parents trying to protect their eggs. They could easily become damaged in all the excitement. This osprey has been warned off, but there's a bigger threat lurking. To crows and ravens, the eggs are a tasty meal. And they're bold enough to attack when the parents are there. They don't give up easily. This time, blue UV fights them off. Across the forest, another nest isn't so lucky. It just takes leaving the eggs unprotected for a moment, and they're stolen by a cunning pair of ravens. Throughout Kielder, all creatures are trying to make the most of this season of opportunity. Some do it with more finesse than others. At the burn, a pied wagtail waits expectantly for insects. In Italian, wagtails are known as ballerinas. For them, it's not just about catching a meal. They must do it with an element of style. Right now, there isn't an easy swarm it can binge on. It must use all its expertise to pick them off. Its timing must be impeccable. Bravo! When it comes to eating, there's one creature in the forest more voracious than most. This caterpillar hatched from an egg the size of a pinhead and emerged smaller than a grain of rice. But once it's born into this world, it has just one thing on its mind: eating. Caterpillars are little more than stomachs on legs. The more it eats, the more it grows. In just a few weeks, some will consume 27,000 times their body weight. What allows them to grow so quickly is their ability to molt multiple times, meaning a caterpillar will change its skin again and again, often changing its color. The skin is covered in hair-like bristles called setae, giving them their sense of touch. Its job is to store up enough energy to undergo one of the greatest rites of passage in all of nature. The caterpillar creates a silk pad, attaches itself to a stem and hangs head down. Underneath its final caterpillar skin, it is once more creating a new body, one stunningly different to the one it's lived in so far. When it finally wriggles free, it is no longer a caterpillar at all. It has become a chrysalis, a butterfly pupa. It is now in the midst of a transformation so radical, science is still trying to decipher how it happens. Its outer skin dries and hardens. For most of the next 2 weeks, the dull casing of skin looks dormant. But inside, special cells carry out instructions that will complete a miraculous metamorphosis. At the osprey nests, the parents continue to protect their eggs. While the female does most of the incubating, for the male, there's one job he's expected to do above all: hunt. The osprey is one of the only birds of prey to feed almost exclusively on fish, something Kielder Reservoir has plenty of. The osprey is an ambush hunter. It circles the lake looking through the surface for the ripples of a fish's fin. They must combine their incredible eyesight with impeccable timing. Once it spies its target, it begins to dive for the water. The osprey can go deep into the reservoir. The fish might fight, but his talons are equipped with adhesive scales and long curved claws for an unbreakable hold. The osprey then carries the fish with its head facing forwards in the direction it's flying, keeping it streamlined. He's fulfilled his duty. His partner can feed up as she continues to wait hopefully for her new chicks. Elsewhere, new life is already emerging. Amidst the pond skaters and newts, this shallow pool is full of tadpoles. From above the water, they look like simple jet-black blobs. It's hard to imagine in a matter of weeks they'll become the next generation of frogs. These alien-like creatures are some of the greatest shapeshifters in nature. Already they have changed from the days when they first hatched. As newborn tadpoles, they had no eyes or mouth, but did have antler-like feathery external gills. They were also equipped with a cement gland on their heads, allowing them to spend their early existence simply attached, motionless, to a plant or their egg jelly, remaining hidden from predators. It's not long until the gills become internal and are covered in a flap of skin. They now have eyes and a mouth and seem to eat constantly. Inside, their incredible transformation is continuing. The cartilage of the tadpole will turn into the bone of the frog, while tadpoles' eyes, which are on the side of their heads, must move to the front to give frogs the binocular vision they need to catch flies. Of course, not all will make it. If all tadpoles survive to become adults, Kielder might just be facing a problem of biblical proportions. But hopefully, some will soon grow legs and emerge as tiny froglets. Their amazing shape-shifting complete. In spring, there's a beauty and mystery to smaller creatures we often don't appreciate. This might seem like an annoying swarm of insects, but look closer, and it is in fact something quite beautiful. The dance of the mayfly. Flying up vertically, they beat their wings 20 to 30 times a second, then stop and parachute down. They'll repeat this move again and again, as if bouncing on an invisible trampoline. It's all in the hope of attracting a mate. As the mayfly dance continues, there's another dancer waiting to pounce. The pied wagtail is back, but this time there's less call for leaps and pirouettes. Easy pickings are everywhere. With the sun getting warmer, one creature usually hidden away is now firmly out on display. The adder, Britain's only venomous snake. The most northerly member of the viper family, it's easily distinguished by its red eye and zigzag markings, camouflaging it against the bracken. The males emerged from their winter sleep weeks ago, but now in April they are joined by the females. They all must flatten their bodies to capture the maximum warmth from the sun's rays. For the males, despite not eating for months over winter, they must bask in the weak spring sunshine to raise their metabolism so they can develop sperm. Right now, they're sluggish and will need to sunbathe like this for several weeks before they can find a mate. The lengthening days of spring bring a surge of life to the forest. Everywhere there are new parents trying to guide their offspring. These young are at the most vulnerable point of their lives. Rabbit kittens try to stay hidden in the long grass. While this juvenile goldfinch is distinctly less colorful than an adult, as it hopes to avoid the attention of predators. Many animals are born with a drive to accept the first beings they see as their parents. The look and voice of the adults are then indelibly etched into their minds. It's known as imprinting. Precocial birds, those that can walk after hatching, are most associated with this phenomenon. At the reservoir, these mandarin ducklings are exploring with their mother. She is protector, teacher, and guide throughout the first months of life. Unlike other birds, no parent provides for these ducklings. They must start feeding the moment they enter the water. Fortunately, in spring, it's brimming with good things to eat. The larvae of aquatic insects and pondweed for a bit of greenery. But ducks are full of surprises. As the ducklings search amongst the rocks, Mum has found something much bigger to eat. In her beak, she's juggling with a small rodent. With no teeth, she won't be able to chew it up. But she's not giving up on it as a meal. It's not unheard of for mandarins to eat grasshoppers, frogs, and even small snakes. But a whole rodent is certainly a big and rare mouthful. As if she doesn't want her ducklings to copy, she finds a quiet spot before eating it in one. For her young, foraging close to the water's edge without their mother's protection, they are at risk of becoming the mouthful. Sniffing around nearby is a fox cub. But has Mum spotted the danger? She gets back just in time to lead her young to the safety of the open water. At the same time as looking for food, the ducklings must learn to be vigilant and avoid becoming another's meal. For all new creatures in the forest, it's a struggle to survive. It's now May in Kielder Forest. The change from the dark, cold days of winter to the warmth and light of summer is almost complete. Inside this chrysalis, another of nature's magical transformations is coming to an end. A once stubby, crawling, earthbound caterpillar is recycling and remodeling itself into something completely different. When the time is right, the skin of the chrysalis opens and is born again as a fully formed butterfly. This is the most cosmopolitan of all butterflies, the painted lady. Equipped with keen butterfly senses. It's through her new extended legs that she can taste the leaf she stands on. Her head now has large, complex eyes with more than 30,000 lenses. Instead of a nose, she has antennae that can catch the faintest scent. Her jaws have been replaced with what we think of as a tongue, a long proboscis. It's made of two long strands that zip together to form a tube. She usually carries it coiled, just below her head. And now she has the ultimate in new parts, wings. Slowly they unfurl. Incredibly, it's membranes in her wings that help her hear. So a butterfly isn't just resting when its wings are folded, it's listening for danger. Butterflies are one of the most delicate great survivors of the natural world. For this painted lady, it's time to take to the air. Elsewhere in Kielder Forest, other transformations are almost complete. At the shallow pond, what were once small tadpoles are now emerging out of the water as juvenile frogs, or froglets. Some remain under the surface with long tails still waiting to be absorbed into their bodies. But for the quick developers, this is an important milestone. They still have a lot of growing to do, but hopefully in 2 years they'll be sexually mature and can return to these waters to have young of their own. For other offspring, it's also almost time to leave their parents. In a part of the forest where trees have been felled, it might look desolate, but a swallow fledgling sits on a perch, waiting. It might have left the nest and be able to fly, but it's still being fed by its parents. Their stunningly fast maneuvers catch insects for the young. Although this youngster might not get it all its own way, now a sibling has joined. Even if this time it's won. It's this sibling rivalry that leads to the classic begging behavior of a young bird. The wide open gape revealing the brightly colored mouth lining, designed to be an easy target, combined with waving of the wings and begging calls. Swallow parents in particular have been found to respond to the loudest begging. Once in front of their young, it's some skill to hover in the air and stuff the food deep down the gullet of their offspring. These are the last few meals from their parents before they head off on their own. As May turns to June, the sound of summer hums in the air. Our ospreys continue the long wait for their chicks. But for first-time breeders, there's always a chance they won't be successful. Next time, the forest has some new arrivals, but it's a battle to survive. There are some surprising moves from one of the forest's smaller creatures, and Britain's fastest declining mammal is reintroduced to Kielder.